As we complete our memorial service, we know that some will leave and some will remain and some will join anew. We'll be led in this part of our service by our readers, Michael Friedman and Jack Schwartz, as well as our final speaker, Larry Lawrence, president of Machar's board. For this final part of our Yom Kippur service, we turn toward moving through regret to restore relationships with one another, with ourselves, and with the world. Restoration does not in every case mean forgiveness. Forgiveness is not always possible, and Jewish wisdom traditions teach us we cannot be certain of our own forgiveness or of our own repentance and change of heart. Nevertheless, deep in the center of this holiday is the concept of commitment, individual and communal. If the year does not begin fresh with hope and clean of wrongdoing, then we suffer and the community suffers. But the choice is ours. It is not foreordained. The world of possibilities is born again each year. Perhaps all of us, in all our relationships, to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to our society, need to reevaluate our sense of commitment. We also need to reevaluate society's commitment to us. Perhaps this symbolizes the true meaning of Yom Kippur for us, to assume responsibility for all we want and all we are. And you may have noticed that we ended the regret part of our service with these few lines from Leonard Cohen's Anthem and with part of a reading called Because. We resume with Anthem and the second portion of Because, reflecting that we have acknowledged our shortcomings and regrets, that they cause us pain, and that we now seek to do what we can for restoration, to return as much to rights as we possibly can. And that requires us to recognize, first and foremost, that we are capable of doing what is right.
A crack in everything. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Because I'm in pain, because I wish I could undo it, because I hurt him, because I lost her trust, because I let them down, because I was self-destructive,
Because I was foolish, because I'm ashamed, because that's not who I am, because that's not who I want to be, because I want to be forgiven. And Michael will lead us in this reading responsively. She'll read the block and we will read the italics.
Let us affirm the good we have done. Let us acknowledge our acts of healing and repair. For the good we have done
by acting with restraint and self-control,
through acts of generosity and compassion,
by
offering children our love and support,
through acts of friendship and hospitality,
by keeping
promises and honoring commitments,
through the work of our hands and by serving others,
by caring for the earth
and sustaining its creatures,
creatures,
by housing the homeless, feeding the hungry, and welcoming the stranger,
through acts
of civic engagement,
and
tikkun olam.
All these
acts have brought light
and healing
into the world. May these acts inspire us
to
renew our efforts in the year to come. Therefore, it is necessary that one view oneself throughout the year as being half innocent and half guilty. Likewise, the whole world is half innocent and half guilty. I mentioned on Rosh Hashanah that the next song we're about to sing, Ani Ve'ata, has seemingly wildly optimistic lyrics attached to a melody that speaks of melancholy and even fatigue. It reminds us that we know we have high standards, sometimes absurdly high standards, and that we will fall short. While we know this about ourselves, we must temper it with the knowledge that while we will sometimes fail, we are always still capable of doing good, even if perfection is not within our grasps. And you can see why in the translation the lyrics seem wildly optimistic and a little bit out of step with the melody. You and I will change the world. Then they'll all join us. It's been said before, but it's no matter. You and I will change the world. You and I will try from the beginning. It will be tough, but so what? It doesn't matter. It's been said before, but no matter. You and I will change the world. All people try and fail. The wise learn to forgive and try again. We can be too slow to forgive others. We are long to remember injuries and short to forget assistance. Anger and memory have their place, and forgiveness does not require forgetting. We forgive by choosing not to avenge, by being open to second chances. Forgiving others brings us peace. We can be too quick to forgive ourselves. We celebrate our successes and quickly explain away our failures. Dwelling on our shortfalls is not healthy, but neither is whitewashing them. Self-forgiveness requires honesty about the sides of ourselves we would rather not face. Forgiving ourselves brings us peace. Let us pause for a moment of true forgiveness. Let us forgive others, and let us forgive ourselves. We'll now be joined by our community speaker, Machar President Larry Lawrence.
I will be reading the words of Yaakov Malkin. Malkin was an educator, writer, and professor whose work focused on secular Judaism and humanistic ethics. Malkin was a colleague of Sherwin Wine of SHJ and the father of Rabbi Sivan Malkin Mas. Yaakov Malkin's books include What Do Secular Jews Believe? And The Atheist Belief of Secular Jews. He died in 2019. SHJ broadcast a tribute to him last August, including this taped talk that he had previously given. This is a somber reflection on the meaning of death to a secular Jew. Epicurus said, "Where I am, there is no death, and where death is, I am not." Epicurus thus contributed to the release from the fear of death, for the fear of death is in fact the fear of eternal life after death, according to religious beliefs. In Epicurus's secular or atheist view, death, being the transition from being to non-being, is not entry to a new life of torture and hell. It is non-being, non-suffering. Death is accompanied by the immortality of the soul. Immortality of the soul means my soul remaining inside of that of my loved ones. Death is indeed related to the pain of taking leave of friends, loved ones, of myself, for I shall no longer know myself or know that I am alive after dying. For man is perhaps the only creature who can not only be, but know that he is. Taking leave of lovers, friends, of myself, also means hope that lovers and friends will remember the deceased, his humanity and personality, perhaps know his works, since man is the only creature able by his spiritual works to generate change in his own life and in that of those who enjoy his works. The works through which we express our lives, express our thoughts, are part of the inheritance we leave behind. Only man is able not just to live in nature, not only in society, but to change it as well. And he is able to do this both in life and after death. This is the source of hope that comes with leave taking, the hope born of man's preeminence over beast. Love that is more powerful than death, combined with the memory of the living and of the dead. The power of love, born even as we meet death, experience it. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Malkin's talk and a number of Malkin's other works, he did study Epicurus in some depth, and Epicurus is in some ways the first humanist and certainly the first materialist. Malkin's work, Malkin's writing, is a reminder that we have a limited amount of time that we know of in which to get things done and in which to improve the world and in which to restore our relationships with one another. It is customary during Yom Kippur that Avinu Malkeinu is actually chanted a number of times, as are a number of other confessional texts. And so we will hear our Tzrichim Anachnu once again. For those following along in the printed version of the book, we are around page 32. We will bypass the breakout discussion in the interests of time and resume with a litany of atonement. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible. For each time that we have struck out in anger without justice or cause, for each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, together, we forgive each other and ourselves. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone, for falling short of admonitions of the Spirit, for losing sight of our unity, for those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, that have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive each other and ourselves. We begin again in love. I mentioned on Rosh Hashanah that this imagery that the Bible uses, because this is from the book of Psalms in large part, imagines people as though they are plants blossoming in neighborhoods as a result of righteousness. The biblical authors of this text imagined that this was because of adherence to divine command. We know that that's not quite what we mean here, and that what we mean instead is that righteous action improves us and improves our lives, and that the more righteous action there is, the more improved our lives are, the more we flourish, the more we grow tall, the better our communities are. We've reached the section for our Amidah. Amidah means standing. Given the strangeness of Zoom as a medium, you do not need to stand, although you may if you wish to. We can understand this as figurative standing for what we believe. The Amidah was understood by the rabbis of the Talmud to be a replacement for sacrifices that were offered in the temple in Jerusalem, and they fixed a schedule for the Amidah that reflected the schedule of those sacrifices. Yom Kippur sometimes also has within it an entirely separate service, the Avodah Service, which is intended to replace special separate Yom Kippur sacrifices marked in the text of the Torah with still more liturgy. These rationales don't make a ton of sense for most humanistic Jews. Most of us don't think we're truly at a loss because of the end of the temple sacrifices. Why have an Amidah then? In our case, it is so we can join together and affirm promises to pursue an agenda of righteous action and pursuing peace by directly expressing that intent as a community. Those following along in the PDF that was emailed out, we are on page 33. You may stand if you wish to. Since the temple stood in Jerusalem, Jews, in a standing position, Amidah, have idealized qualities which they attributed to their ancestors and deity. Whether literally or in spirit, please stand together now to proclaim our shared ideals and our will to act upon them.
Let us remember those who have come before us, who have given us life, love, and our culture.
Such is our Zikaron Chazdei Imot V'Avot, our remembrance of the kindness and merits of our mothers and fathers.
Let us work together in mutual aid to benefit all.
May we thus advance mutuality, Gmilut Chasadim, our best response to being parts of a vast and interdependent world.
Let us be thankful for all that sustains us, for all that gives us contentment and joy, compassion and understanding.
May our efforts help bring such well-being to all who live on earth. Together, let us work for peace, shalom, in our relationships, our communities, and our world. Let us recognize and celebrate our differences to better live together on this one planet. Let us work to heal the sick and sustain health, to give to the weary strength and life renewed, to support those who have fallen, to uplift those bowed down, to free those in bondage, to abolish both greed and poverty, to repair and improve the world. Hava na'avod, l'rapeh cholim u'lechalkel briut, latet la'ayef koach v'chayim mechudeshet, lismoch noflim, lizkov kefufim, lahatir asurim, levatel gam betza v'gam oni, litaken et ha'olam. And we join together to sing Od Yavo Shalom, There Will Yet Be Peace. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Salam Aleinu Ve'al Kol Ha'olam. Salam, Salam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, Salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Salam Aleinu Ve'al Kol Ha'olam. Salam, Salam, Salam Aleinu Ve'al Kol Ha'olam. Salam, Salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kulam. I thank Michael for serving as our first reader and co-leader for the Restore section of our service. We'll now be joined through the end of our service by Jack Schwartz, who will read and co-lead through the end of this portion of the day. You may notice that there's no need for the focus to change between Michael and Jack because they are in the same place.
Hope for healing.
Yes.
It is traditional to include in the Amidah mention of those who are ailing and to express hope for their complete healing, refuah shlema. We know that illness can take many forms, and thus we hope for healing as each person needs it, when they need it.
Together, let us bring to mind those whom full healing will not come, including all those harmed by the failure of environmental and public health officials to take action to ensure health and safety during the COVID-19 pandemic and the series of global disasters related to climate change. We take a moment as well to bring to mind those in need of healing, as well as those who provide help, essential services, and healing in this historical moment, one dangerous to the helped and helper alike. Makom hakoach betochenu, mekorot habracha mechevretenu. May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say shalom. Makom hakoach betochenu, mekorot habracha mechevretenu. May those in need of healing be blessed with renewal of body, renewal of spirit, and let us say shalom.
Peace. Peace is more than an ideal. It's an achievement. There is no divine power that will give it to us for nothing. There are no laws of history that will guarantee its arrival. Peace is hard work. The forces of war and violence are very strong in our world. They hide in the deep unconscious of our mind. They attach themselves to personal greed. They find a friend in the lust for power.
Too often our mouth prefers peace, but our behavior prefers war. We praise love and harmony, but we indulge hate and hostility. We endorse kindness, but we subsidize cruelty. Together, we have to work for peace in the same way that we work for a living. In the age of nuclear destruction, it may be even more important.
Neutrality. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality.
I, serial number 30743, Lieutenant General in Reserves Yitzhak Rabin, a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces and in the Army of Peace. I, who have sent armies into fire and soldiers to their death, say today, we sail on to a war which has no casualties, no wounded, no blood nor suffering. It is the only war in which it is a pleasure to participate, the war for peace. The reading we just finished from Yitzhak Rabin seemed best combined with the following song, Jerusalem of Gold. In the light of our memory nearly 25 years after Rabin's murder, his speech before the U.S. Congress strikes in many of us a note of regret, of grief for what might have been. The melody for Jerusalem of Gold carries a hint of sadness as well. But there's another thread that ties these two texts. Neither of them are without their complications. We largely remember Rabin as he presented toward the end of his life, as waging a war seeking peace. And for many of us, this vastly overshadows Rabin's prior identity, as the general who during the First Intifada is reported to have ordered Israeli soldiers to break Palestinian prisoners' bones. For many people, Jerusalem of Gold is a post-1967 Israeli anthem marking the return to Jerusalem after the Six-Day War. Yet the idealized imagery of Jerusalem of Gold is somewhat not matched by its history as a composition. Its writer Naomi Shemer acknowledged later in life that the melody for much of the song was taken from a Basque lullaby, Peo Yochepe, or Joseph the Fool. Shemer expressed regret for this, but the musician from whom she heard the song was gratified that his performance helped Shemer write the song. We have to contend in working for restoration with the complications of reality, the complications of a warrior for peace whose legacy of causing pain makes him unforgivable to some people, the complications of a song that idealizes a city that is often anything but, with a musical composition that has its own difficult history, and the complications of our own difficult, contradictory selves as we work to restore what has been broken. We are human. We are unfathomable works of contradiction and complexity. Our goal is to leave the legacy so many of us see in Rabin or in Shemer's song, complicated, but with lives that can, in many ways, still be remembered well.
Trees that stand in silence upon the hills of time, to hear the voices of the city as bells of evening chime. The shofar sounding from the temple to call the world to care. The shepherd pauses in the valley and peace is Yerushalayim Shazakah, V'Shem Hoshet V'Shem Adon Lekol
There is a time in every generation when some Jews are afraid, when some Jews are threatened, when some Jews are attacked because they are Jews. But that is not our only story.
There are stories of survival, stories of success, stories of new beginnings, stories of laying down new roots, because another generation becomes the future.
I do not stand up and ask for a leap of faith to the unknown, to the unknowable, to believe with me in anything but one undeniable fact. Together, the future is coming and we must leap into it, carrying our jars of fallen tears, our pockets filled with Hebrew letters, and our hope as the new day dawns.
Machar, light of rain, gloomy skies, tomorrow will be clear and bright. Machar, we have a hope that never dies, that dawn will soon replace the night. Sing, for tomorrow is another day. Dream a dream that's free of care and sorrow. When it's dark, let your heart lead the way, and Machar will be, and Machar will be, and Machar will be a bright tomorrow.
Does anything say Machar quite as plainly as a baby in a video in a song whose title is Tomorrow? The story we're about to read, The Carob Tree, teaches us that we work today knowing we may never see the fruit of our labor. It's a simplification of a longer text, which is sort of a Talmudic Rip Van Winkle story about Honi Hama'agel, Honi the circle drawer, who would draw a circle in the dust and refuse to step out of it until the heavens opened and provided rain. And somehow, every time Honi insisted on this, it rained. It is Honi who is planting the tree that we will read about, and we read in the Talmud that Honi slept for 70 years and awoke to discover that his personal legacy had been forgotten, and no one would believe he was who he said he was, even as the tree itself still stood and provided fruit for his descendants. As we approach the close of our service focused on restoration, this story is a reminder that our deeds will have long legacies, but that we owe a debt to the past as well, even if we cannot remember any longer how we got here and upon which giant's shoulders we now stand. One day, Rabbi Yochanan was on a journey, and he noticed a man planting a carob tree. He asked him, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, the man replied. He then asked him, "Are you sure you will be alive in 70 years?" The man replied, "I found the world ready with previously planted carob trees. As my forefathers planted them for me, I will plant them for my children." Together, today we stop to consider what is growing in that orchard of our lives. What have we planted that generations beyond ourselves can reap? Today we stop to consider the impact of our lives on future generations, knowing that in time we, too, will be ancestors.
Today I stand back and survey my land. Today I tend to the soil of my life. Today I plant so that generations to come can reap.
In a moment, we'll hear the shofar one last time. Before that, some of you can already predict what I'm about to say. Announcements. First, there are many people to thank. Gratitude is due to the many people involved in making our services work. Volunteering to work the digital door are Machar's board president Larry Lawrence, board member Nadine Wetstein, adult education committee member Joyce Frieden Rosenthal, and our congregational administrator Tara Newhouse. Thank you to all of our readers for co-leading today's services, Arlene Ogurek, Miriam Gittler, Michael Friedman, and Jack Schwartz. Thank you as well to our speakers, Paul Golan, who is not here to hear our thank you, but deserves it nevertheless, and Larry Lawrence. Thank you as well to Machar's board for going on this rather giant adventure of taking Machar digital quickly. Thanks go as well to Hank Prensky for serving as our Baal Tikiah, our shofar blower, for the holidays. To Renee Weitzner and Leah Morris for the poem and song Dust, and to Sue Zwicker for the adaptation of the Sufjan Stevens song Chicago. Thanks as well to the choir members for their work recording music for our holiday commemorations. Excuse me. Joy Markowitz, Joanna Pratt, Joyce Frieden Rosenthal, Keith Campbell Rosen, Laura Ariovich, and Barbara Bernstein. Thanks go to Jacob Barron for providing invaluable technical assistance in getting all the videos recorded, to Harry Appleman for his piano accompaniment, and to Joanna Pratt, Steve Samuels, and Evan Samuels for technical work connected to getting the music to happen. While we were unable to hear more from some of our longtime choir members, their work was essential in Kol Nidre services last night, as was Harry Appleman's piano-based rendition. The guitar player on the few songs involving guitar has asked to remain anonymous. Rachel Hanadari, our Bar Mitzvah class teacher, led the families and children's service. We are grateful for her continued enthusiasm, time, and energy in ensuring that our youngest community members are able to mark the holidays in a way that works for them. I am grateful that they continue to allow me to blow my shofar for these services. Otherwise, I would forever be terribly out of practice. And finally, our thanks go to you for joining with us as we mark Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah. Whoop. And that's how you can tell it was a copy and paste. As we mark Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is technically a Shabbat, so I'm only 50% wrong. Right around now, if we were together in one room, I'd be making my way toward the back to greet everyone. We can't do that today. However, I'm happy to answer questions, arrange conversations, and would love to get to know you if you're new to us. Please don't hesitate to send me a message by email at rabbi@machar.org or find us on Facebook and send us a message, because I see that inbox too. If you're new to Machar, or even if you're not, take a look at our website, machar.org, for updates on upcoming programming for kids and adults. A final reminder, we have one more event for Yom Kippur. At 6 p.m. tonight, we will have a final reflect and review event. It will include a small Havdalah. Most holidays don't get the full candles, spices, and wine that come with Shabbat, but will also include a discussion and opportunities to unpack from the work of the high holidays. I hope you'll join me this evening for something a little less programmed and a little more individually contemplative and challenging. Thank you again to all who contributed to making these services happen, and to all who have attended and participated in our community during this year's difficult high holiday season. We will soon hear the shofar as well. If you wish to rise, you may do so. Together, now is the time to do what we need to do. Now is the time to think about our lives, to think about our behavior, to think about the people we admire and love. Tekiah.
Now is the time to gather our strength, to deepen our understanding, to discover our power. Now is the time to choose first things first, to place our family, our education, and our health above mere fun and play.
Shavarim.
Now is the time to become the masters of our lives and to rule our feelings. Now is the time to discover our excuses and to take responsibility for all that we do.
Teruah. Let us say together, we will be honest about our behavior. We will protect our family. We will make learning important. We will guard our health. We will control our feelings. We will take responsibility for all that we do. Tekiah Gedolah. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll close with our closing song, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, to a good and sweet year. Thank you all so much. Shana Tova. For those of you who are fasting, I hope you have an easy fast. For those who need to reach out, please don't hesitate to reach out. Machar as a community is here for you during the holidays and all other times as well. Thank you again, everybody, for coming and marking Yom Kippur with us. Shana Tova.